Hello and welcome back to Franklin Covey's twice weekly podcast on leadership with Scott Miller. I'm your host each week and your interviewer, where for 6+ years, nearly 400 episodes taped and 350 aired, never having missed an episode, all through the pandemic and through the world's troubles. We've come here every week to shine what is Franklin Covey's super bright spotlight onto thought leaders from all walks of life. Some of them are experts on leadership, marketing, entrepreneurialism, culture, trauma, tragedy, communication, you name it. We try to bring you great conversations from some of the world's foremost thought leaders on the topic of their expertise. Today, we have the renowned twice unicorn genius. His name is Uri Levine. He's joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel, where he is going to impart in us water skiing, if you will, not scuba diving, but water skiing across some of the best lessons we all need to learn around what it means to be a problem solver. In fact, his new best-selling book is called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution, a handbook for entrepreneurs. Now, everyone may not self-identify as an entrepreneur. Some of you are intrapreneurs. Some of you are solopreneurs. But all of us, I think, have an innate need to disrupt, to invent, to create, to offer value, no matter what role you are in. And Uri is a master at teaching us that in his new best-selling book. Uri, welcome to On Leadership.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Now, Uri, great branding, and by the way, between your t-shirt and your background, the book is phenomenal. I would love it if you would take a few minutes and maybe check your humility and talk about your role, your journey as an entrepreneur, some of the companies that you are responsible for leading and developing and selling, and then we'll dive into a lot of the ideas in your book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution.
So thank you for the opportunity. And I would say that most people probably would know me as the founder of Waze, the driving app that actually is serving about 700 million drivers around the globe. And helping each one of them to save time, to figure out their arrival time, and really an application that everyone uses and loves. The Waze journey, like all entrepreneurship journey, is a journey that I can define in probably 3 or 4 dimensions. The first one is that this is going to be a roller coaster journey with ups and downs and ups and downs. And look, if you'll tell me that all the businesses in the world have ups and downs, I agree. But the frequency of those when you're a building startup, way higher. I think that I heard the best quote on that from Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz is one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm. And before that, he used to be a CEO of a startup, and he was asked whether or not he was sleeping well at night. And he said, oh yeah, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. And that's really the reality. So one dimension, roller coaster journey. The other dimension is that this is going to be a journey of failures. Look, we're trying to build something new that no one did before. And we think that we know exactly what we are doing, but the reality is that we don't. So we try. We try one thing and it doesn't work. We try another thing and it doesn't work. We keep on trying different things until we find one thing that does work. Now, if you realize that this is going to be a journey of failure, then there are 2 immediate conclusions. The first one is that if you're afraid to fail, in reality, you already failed because you are not going to try. This is one of the biggest challenges of many corporates' DNA, is that there is a high fear of failure and people are not trying. And when you're not trying something new, then obviously your ability to innovate or discover something new is very limited. The other conclusion is that, look, if this is going to be a journey of failures, then fail fast. Because the faster that you fail, you actually have plenty of time to make another attempt and another attempt, another go-to-market approach, another version of the product, and so forth. And the more attempts that you have, you essentially increase the likelihood of being successful. Now, the last element, this is going to be a long journey. This is going to be way longer than you think it is. And the longest part of this journey is to figure out product market fit. And product market fit is really simple. This is when you create value to your customers or to your users, right? And in reality, I would say, look, if you did not figure out product market fit, you will die. As simple as that. You never heard of a company that did not figure out product market fit. They simply died. That's it. Once a company did figure out product market fit, they don't change that anymore. No, we are searching Google today the same way that we search Google for the first time in our life. Or we are using Waze or WhatsApp or Facebook or Netflix may be a little bit different, or Uber or whatever it is, the same way that we did it for the first time for our life. So once you figure out the value that you create to your customers, you don't change that anymore. What we usually don't know is how long did it take companies to get there. And it's a long journey. It's a matter of years. It was 4 years for Waze. It was 10 years for Netflix, 5 years for Microsoft. Even for OpenAI, that last year we all get to know the ChatGPT, they are 7 years old. So it takes time to create value. Now, if you are in a business, you know that it takes time to create value, and it's no different in a startup world. It's exactly the same.
Uri, let's start there. You use this phrase, product market fit. This may not be a common phrase that everybody understands, especially perhaps those that have been in maybe in a corporate job for many years, and now they're thinking of entrepreneurialism or a startup. Will you take a few minutes and re-explain to everybody what product market fit means? How do you know when you've achieved it? When do you tinker with it? What are the questions you ask? Walk us through a masterclass quickly on product market fit.
So it's way simpler than you think, because at the end of the day, product market fit have one metric, really just one: retention. And that's really simple. Look, if you create value, they will come back. That's it. If they're not coming back, that means that you are not creating value. Now, it's possible that you are creating value, but it's too complex to get to the value, which is part of the journey of figuring that out. At the end of the day, and this is going back into the name of the book, people often ask me why fall in love with the problem and not the solution. And look, we're trying to make an impact. We are trying to create value. The simplest way to create value is solve a problem. So by education, I'm engineer, right? So I'm always looking for the simplest way. And the simplest way to create value is solve a problem. But when you actually think of the problem and you fall in love with the problem, what's going to happen is that the problem is going to serve as the North Star of your journey. And all the time you would be looking into, am I making progress in getting this problem eliminated? And when you have a North Star, you're going to make less deviation from your course. And this is true for everything that you're doing. If you know where you are going, then you increase the likelihood of getting there. The other part of it is that your story is going to be way more compelling. Just imagine that we will be here in 2007, and I will tell you I'm going to build an AI crowdsource-based navigation system. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, very interesting, but you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. And when your customers care, when your users care, they are going to help you to become successful. Going back into product market fit, figuring that out, which is the value that you create to your users, and in return, they are coming back, they are willing to pay, and so forth. It's an iterative process. You might start with something that is not good enough, and people are leaving because there is no value, or it's too complex, or they don't like it. And then the process is really simple. All you have to do is speak with those that have left and ask them why, what happened. And they will tell you, oh, this didn't work for us, this didn't work. We expect that to do this one, and it didn't do that, and so forth. And through this iterative process, every time that you get new feedback, it gets you closer to figuring out product market fit. And this is where you are going to win, because you create value. Look, at the end of the day, if you create value, you will be successful. If you create a lot of value, then you will be very successful. And if you create a little value, you will be somewhat successful. But if you are not creating value, guess what? You are not going to be successful.
Uri, I want to read a passage from the book and then have you expand on it. You write, companies that fall in love with the problem ask themselves every day, are we making progress towards eliminating this problem? They tell a story of, quote, this is the problem we solve, end quote, or even better, they narrow it down to, quote, we help XYZ people to avoid ABC problems, end quote. Whereas for companies that focus on the solution, their story will start with, quote, our system or we. If the focus is about you, it'll be much harder to become relevant. If the story is about your users and a focus on the problem, it will be much easier to gain relevance. I think this permeates web copy, emails, social media, PR templates. It's the mindset of leaders. It's very easy for organizations to think about their competence, their mission, their passion. Remind, even for entrepreneurs that are intrapreneurs in companies, how important it is to almost constantly reorient your mindset against yourself, away from yourself, and towards your customer and your employee. I think there's a magnetic draw towards what is your person, what are you passionate about, your mission. People can fall in that trap pretty easily.
And they usually do. Look, I get hundreds of emails from different entrepreneurs, and 95% of them will start with, our system is, right? And no, I don't care what you're doing. I care why you are doing that, right? And this is the value that you create. And I think that the world will become a better place if we start to adopt this approach and we think about the value that we create, and we in particular think about whom do we create this value, because that is going to help us to become more successful.
Uri, I want to take some time and just sort of water ski across some key concepts and ask if you would just opine on a few of these. One is you very specifically talk about firing and hiring, and in that order. Why did you name the chapter, and why is that order important around firing and hiring? And what is the responsibility of leaders, of owners, to make tough choices when it could very well be eroding value and morale amongst the team?
So you are right. I call this chapter Firing and Hiring. And when I sent the book proposal to many of the publishers, they told me, oh, no, it should be hiring and firing. And I said, no, firing is a hard decision. Hiring is easy decision. First of all, you have to learn how to make the hard decision. Now, the inspiration from this chapter came from many dialogues that I had with entrepreneurs that their startup failed. And I asked them why, what happened? And about half told me the team was not right. And I kept on asking, okay, what do you mean the team was not right? And they told me, we had this guy not good enough and this guy not good enough. And so not good enough was the main reason. Another reason that I heard quite often is that we had communication issues, right? Something that I actually call ego management issues. And then I asked them the most interesting question: when did you know that the team is not right? Now, the answer was scary. All of them told me within the first month. And you say, wait a minute, if you knew within the first month that the team is not right and you didn't do anything, the problem was not that the team was not right. The problem was that the CEO did not make hard decisions. Making hard decisions is hard. Making easy decisions is easy. This is why most people don't like to make the hard decisions. And in a small place like a startup or any team in that sense, it will go to the top. Now, the nature of the beast is even worse than that. So just imagine that the CEO knew within a month that the team is not right. What about everyone else? Everyone knows that something is not working. If there is someone that shouldn't be there, everyone knows. And this is the nature of the beast. Everyone knows, and the CEO doesn't do anything. The result, by the way, is always the same. The top performing people, they would leave. They would leave because they have a choice. Now, building a startup is a very, very challenging journey. It's hard work through a long period of time. It's hard to be successful even if you have the right team. If you don't have the right team, this is going to be nearly a mission impossible. Now, if you take that and you take the most significant key takeaway, everyone knew within a month. If this is the case and you are a hiring manager, then every time that you hire someone new, what I want you to do is mark your calendars for 30 days down the road and ask yourself one question. Knowing what I know today, would I hire this person? Now, if the answer is yes, then go to this person and tell them that you are really excited that they've joined and they're exceeding your expectation. And if this is a small organization or you can give them more equity, this is exactly the time to do that, to buy their loyalty because they are exceeding your expectation. But if the answer is no, you should fire that person immediately. because this person is set on a trajectory of not being successful. And they deserve to be successful, but they're not going to be successful here. So from this point on, the moment that you know, you create damage to your team because they also know, to that person, and obviously to you in terms of establishing your leadership. Look, at the end of the day, the most important behavior of successful CEOs is making hard decisions with conviction. Now, if we go to startup CEOs, then it's slightly different. The most important behavior will be never give up. No matter how hard it is, never give up. And the second one is going to be make hard decisions with conviction. And if you don't know how to make hard decisions, you have to learn. You cannot lead without the ability to make hard decisions.
Uri, I think you also write in the book a lot about making sure that when you are obsessed with a problem, that you're bringing in other people to validate your perceptions, the language you use, are other customers calling it by the same name? Talk about how easy it is to insulate yourself out of fear, perhaps fear of someone stealing your idea, someone disputing your idea, someone telling you it's wrong. Remind entrepreneurs, leaders, product creators, period, how important it is to get out into the market and test and make sure that you're not just in a room of mirrors.
So it's interesting because a lot of people tend to think that, okay, wait a minute, if I'm going to tell someone about this, they are going to copy that.
Right.
Then let me ask you the following. How long are you thinking of this problem? It takes time to actually get engaged and make the leapfrog or the leap of faith into saying, this is what I'm going to do, right? And sacrifice pretty much everything else. So if you're going to tell someone, they're not going to copy that. They don't care. They have their own issues. They have their own things. And the amount of time that it took you to basically fall in love and decide that this is what you're going to do, it's going to be the same for them. So every time I will tell you this, the start is always the same. Think of a problem, a big problem, something that it's worth solving, something that the world will become a better place if you solve that. And then ask yourself, so who has this problem? Now, if you happen to be the only person on the planet with this problem, go to a therapist, way cheaper and faster than building a startup. But if a lot of people actually have this problem, what you really want to do next is go and speak with those people and understand their perception of the problem. Now, occasionally people ask me, so how many people do I need to speak to? And the answer is really simple. It's 100. And the 100 number is in order for you not to speak with your closest friends and family only, but go and speak with people that you don't know. But the reality is that you will never get to 100. Because what's going to happen is that, look, if you tell someone, this is the problem I'm going to solve, and they start to argue, or they say, I don't even have this problem, or I don't know anything about it, then they disqualify this problem. But if you speak about a problem that is relevant for them, the dialogue is going to be very different. They will tell you, oh, no, this is not the problem. The problem is, and they will give you their version of the problem. When this happened, go and solve that problem. Now, if you start with the problem and validate that with the users and only then go and build a solution, and your solution works, it's guaranteed that you're creating value. And your journey is going to be way faster and more impactful because you remain focused on the problem.
Uri, let's pivot to raising money and managing investors. Every entrepreneur, for the most part, at some point, is going to get to a point that's a point of inflection, where they either have invested their own time and money and they're out, although you talk about how important it is to kind of quit your day job and go all in. I'll leave that for the book because that was a profound opening about really, are you in this as a hobby or are you in this to make this work? Some great questions that you pose to the reader. What advice would you give the entrepreneur who's going to face that crucial moment of finding and raising money? There's different kinds of money, angel investors and private equity and venture capital, that kind of stuff. What would you tell us we need to know about that?
So, if we define building a startup as a roller coaster journey, then fundraising is a roller coaster journey in the dark. You don't even know what's coming. And it's a completely different ballgame. But let me start with the following. I spoke with many investors and I asked them, how long does it take you to decide if you like the entrepreneur or not? And the one story that I remember the most is that we were sitting in a small meeting room and the partner is looking at me and looking at the door and looking at me again and says, before they sit down. So you realize that the first impression is really dramatic. And it might be a matter of seconds. And then maybe you have few more minutes to either let that first impression solidify or change that. Now, if this is the case, then you have to start with the strongest point in your story, whatever it is. Maybe it's about the team, maybe it's about the problem, maybe it's about the traction, maybe it's about whatever it is. Start with the strongest point at the beginning. Because by the time you'll get there, it's possible that they already made up their mind. The second part that is really dramatic is that I spoke with many investors that invested seed round, so first money into the company. Occasionally, this is based on the CEO and the slideware, right? So just a deck of slides that they're presenting their concept. And asked them why. Why did you decide to invest in this company and this company? What I heard was really consistent. I like the CEO. I like the story. That's it. I like the CEO. I like the story. Now, if this is the case, then there are two immediate conclusions. The first one is that CEO goes by herself to the meeting. No one else, because they need to shine. And it's harder to shine if there are other players around you. And the second part is that you have to learn how to tell a good story. And a good story is not about facts. It's not about numbers. It's about creating emotional engagement. You want the listener to make believe that they're part of the story. You want the listeners to want to be part of the story. And then when they will tell the story further, what they will tell is what they actually felt and not what they heard. And this is exactly what you want. Now, at the end of the day, and this is really the most important part to realize, is that fundraising is a different ballgame, in particular for first-time entrepreneurs, that this is their first funding round. And they think that it's a football, American football, but it turns out to be European football, right? Very different game, even though that they have the same name. I want you to get the following perspective, right? If you are a partner at a venture capital firm, you're likely to see maybe 1 or 200 companies per year. And you're going to invest in 1 or 2, about 1%. Now, if you'll tell me, no, it's actually, this is very active fund, they invest in 2%. That means that 99 entrepreneurs are going to hear no. You need to prepare yourself to hear 100 times no. Now, this is really frustrating because you go and you sell your baby, your passion, your dreams, and they say no. You need to get used to it. It's part of the game. And you keep on improving in telling the story, you keep on improving in creating engagement. Meanwhile, hopefully the company or your journey is making progress, significant enough progress that you can tell them after 6 months or so, look, 6 months ago, I told you X, Y, Z, and guess what? I've achieved X, Y, Z. And now I'm moving further. And the fact that this is a different ballgame that you have to learn how to play. If you don't get it, you will lose. Now, fundraising, at the end of the day, this is refueling your vehicle for the journey. But the car will not go anywhere without fuel.
Uri, you are responsible for leading and creating 2 unicorns, companies with billion-dollar valuations. One of them, of course, you sold to Google. You tell a really interesting story about the acquisition process with Google. Will you maybe just walk our listeners and viewers through that? You introduced this concept of, I think it was the toothbrush, that I thought was interesting, as a lens through which they see acquisitions. Talk us about that, how that process went, and what is there to tease out of that for others to learn about the exit process?
I have today about 10 different startups, and obviously all the CEOs, and I mentor and coach the CEOs, and obviously all of them read the book. And none of them cared really about chapter 12 that speaks about exit. Because if it's irrelevant for you right now, it's irrelevant. And what I've seen is that people are going back to this chapter when dialogue becomes relevant. For a second, I would say I would leave it up to the readers to read and get the story behind the scenes of exit in general or acquisition in general. But I would say three things that you need to take into consideration. And this is really whether or not you should be taking an offer. And I would say think about three things, right? So number one, whether or not this is going to be a life-changing event. If it is, then start to consider it favorably. If it's not, then keep on creating value. The second one is that whether or not this is going to be a life-changing event for your entire team, the people that help you to create this value. And if it's yes, then think about it even more favorably. And if it's not, make sure that you negotiate a deal that makes it a life-changing event for all of your team. And the third one is that company once in a lifetime for you? If it is, then maybe you would like to consider to keep it. If you think that you're going to build more companies and create more value through other ways, then this is a good opportunity to leave. Regardless what you're doing, the difference between the founding and the management team versus every other shareholders is significant. And the difference is really simple. For all other shareholders, there is a deal and there is no day after. They walk away with their money after the deal and that's it. For you, it's a beginning of a new journey. And what you need to make sure is that the new journey is something that you connect to, that you like the vision, that you believe that you can work with the team of the acquirer, that your management team remain in place, that you can actually go and execute the same way that you would execute beforehand, that you like the new journey. Because if you don't like the new journey, this is going to be a nightmare. For everyone else, there is no new journey. They simply walk away.
Uri, you can tell by the set behind me that I like books. I read a lot of books, hundreds of nonfiction books a year. This is my job. I've authored books myself. How I can tell if I like a book is where I read it. If I have to escape up into my bedroom and close the door because our three sons are, distracting me, then it's one kind of book. Your book, I have walked around my home in Salt Lake City holding it in my hand in my living room and kitchen with the boys playing ping pong around me because I have found the book so riveting. That's a good sign when I can actually read the book while my boys are jumping on me because I have found this to be a phenomenal book. I'd love to end. What's the most precious one or two lessons that you have learned in your journey as a startup entrepreneur, beyond patience, beyond market fit, beyond having the courage to fire and hire, all those very valuable pieces in this book? What's the one or two bits you've learned that you want to impart to our listeners today as they prepare to buy and read this book?
So I would say probably two things. One is throughout building startups and writing a book. And by the way, people know me as an entrepreneur, but I have another very strong personality of me, which is a teacher. And this is why I wrote the book, to fulfill my destiny as a teacher and share my know-how with other people and hopefully make them more successful. I have a mission in life. I have a purpose. And this is about value creation. And when you have a purpose, then your life is going to become way easier. And I can create value through multiple ways. I can build startups that help people. I can coach and mentor CEOs. I can teach students. I can write a book and share my know-how. But it's always about value creation. When your journey is about value creation, when your purpose is about value creation, then your life are going to be easier, better, and more successful. And this is something that I've learned throughout my journey, my multiple journeys. It's about value creation. And the second part, my children are the age of 22 to 33, so they are a little bit older, and obviously most of them are throughout the beginning of their career. And what I tell them is that I tell them two things, or maybe three things. One is, at the end of the day, it's not what you're doing, it's whom are you doing it with. This is how your days are going to look like. If you enjoy the environment, if you enjoy the people that you work with, if you enjoy your direct manager, then you're going to have fun. Then you're going to like it. And if you don't, then you are going to suffer. And you don't deserve to suffer. So this is the first thing. The second thing that I tell them is, look for something that you really like and that you're really good at. This is the beginning of your career. Now, in particular, if someone is willing to pay for that as well, right? This is going to be the sweet spot. If you find this, then you are going to be happy. And the last part is, and this is for all the parents, and in particular for you that your kids are still running around the house, you want to teach your children to fail. Because when they do, and there is no judgment, then they will get up. And every time that they get up stronger. So if you want them to be happy, they need to discover what happiness means for them. And they need not to be afraid to fail. And if you can teach your children to fail, and if you can encourage them to try new things, and if you, every time that they fail, you encourage them to get up and try the next time, then you are way more likely to have children that are happy.
Who knew it was also a parenting book? In fact, it is. Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution by Uri Levine, twice co-founder of two unicorns focused on solving problems for people. Highly recommend this book. This is not the kind of book you read on a weekend. You read it over the course of weeks, taking notes, self-reflection, asking yourself, how good am I at this? Am I facing that? Thoroughly enjoyed this investment. At your heart, you are a teacher, you are a mentor. You talk about that as being part of your mission. Uri Levine, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you back here next week for a new conversation on leadership.